Vishwa, it's an online platform for social champions, for change makers, everyday change makers that we see around us, who have put decades of work, of their lifetime, their earnings, into making a difference, to serve others, and to make our world into a better place.
Namaste, everyone. Good morning and welcome to Vishwa Talks. My name is Srivani. Thank you, each of you, for attending today's event. For those of you who have attended a Vishwa Talk before, a very warm welcome to you. And for those of you who are joining us for the first time, here's a little bit about us. Vishwa Talks is a space to expand the horizons of our minds. Every webinar, we call experts from different domains to discuss and examine opinions, issues, problems, and perspectives. Each webinar is an interactive session where we all walk away with more respect for each other and a deeper understanding of the topic at hand. There are many media houses who are coming up with many topics, but most of them are either aligned to one side or another. Here at Vishwa Talks, we allow the experts to express their opinions and give you an opportunity to clarify whatever you have doubts or concerns about. And if you miss a single session, you can visit our website or our YouTube channel for a full library of the fast Vishwa Talks on interesting topics. Today on Vishwa Talks is our speaker, Ms. Pankti Gohel. She will be leading us through the session in just a few moments. Pankti Gohel ji is the founder, CEO of Empower Now. At a very young age, it's a pleasure for me to introduce such young speakers, such young people who are actually working towards the well-being of our people, of our country. She is the founder of Empower Now, consultant for Torchbearers Foundation, a trained psychologist specializing in safe workspaces. She'll be guiding us on how to identify and address microaggressions and inappropriate behaviors, ensuring safety in the workplace. As a psychotherapist, she has worked with individuals and communities for more than 4,000 hours on improving emotional awareness and other concerns involving relationships, trauma, work-related challenges, anxiety, etc. Before we get started, I would like to inform our audience that our speaker will be taking questions from you after our main talk. So please leave your questions in the chat or raise a hand, and we will allow you to ask your question in person. I request everyone to turn on your webcam. Now, without any further ado, I invite our speaker to begin today's Vishwa Talks.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It is such a pleasure to be here again. All right, I just want to check if I'm audible to everyone, and we can do a thumbs up. Okay, wonderful. Please allow me a second to just share my screen. Is this visible? Okay. All right. Okay. So thank you for this amazing introduction, Shivani ma'am. Really appreciate it. As you all are aware, we'll be here for the next 1 hour talking about how we can build and create work cultures where there is safety, where there's respect, and where there is inclusion, right? And specifically, we'll be talking about those by addressing microaggressions and by preventing inappropriate behaviors like sexual harassment. I'm from Empower Now, and as an organization, we believe that the power of information, knowledge, and awareness can really help us make intentional, conscious choices to create meaningful relationships, to create safe workspaces, etc. And so we partner with organizations, educational institutions, schools, colleges to create these spaces with them. And we provide interventions at various levels, which includes compliance with the laws, which includes focusing on their mental health, on improving engagement, etc. Now, I just want to quickly take you all through the agenda so you know what to expect in the next 40-45 minutes. This is a topic that I am really, really passionate about. And so I have so much to talk about, and I've tried to sort of wrap everything up in these brief 45 minutes. I want to show you all a couple of videos as well. So we'll do, I'm not going to interact a lot with you in the first 40 minutes. I'm going to save the interaction for later when the amazing Vishwa team will help me out with your questions. So I would really appreciate it if you could hold on to your thoughts and questions. Please feel free to put it on chat and we'll take it up later. All right. So we'll be beginning with understanding microaggressions. I understand maybe this is a term which is new to some of you. And so let's try to understand what microaggressions at workplace look like and what its impact is. We'll be then moving into understanding inappropriate behaviors like sexual harassment. You probably may have heard of this a few years ago in the whole Me Too movement that had taken the social media by a storm. We'll then come to how the nation has protected workplaces by putting in place this law which prevents sexual harassment at workplace. So we'll talk about what the compliance requirements are, what the law expects from each of us. And we'll be ending the webinar by talking about how we can create a culture of mutual respect and inclusion. All right, I'm going to start with sharing all of, I want to share a video with all of you. If it's not audible, can you please just write on chat?
Mr. Mishra, Akshay, Shalini, Kavita, Mr. Venkat.
No way. I was just being polite.
I am not guilty.
I felt bad.
No, that was meant to be a joke.
No. It was just a compliment.
Let's start from the beginning and see what happened.
Thank you, thanks.
Good morning.
Morning, Mr.
Second floor?
No, fourth actually.
Did you also get stuck in the park traffic?
No, I live next street.
I ride a scooter. Very convenient. By the way, you're looking very nice.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Acha. Appraisal meeting. Don't worry. You'll get it.
Good morning, Shalini. What happened?
Don't even ask, yeah. You know that Mishra ji? He thought I'm dressed like this just to impress the boss. Can you believe that?
Men. Okay, listen, it's our boss in. I need to ask for leave next weekend.
Leave? In the middle of appraisals? Wait, what's your excuse? Are you pregnant? Oh, no, wait. You can use your Madrasi bonding and ask him. Of course he'll give you leave. Go. Go ask him.
Okay, I see. Na pora.
Hello? Kavita, read the
Shama, you should have been in the show yesterday. You missed an amazing show, yeah. You were so good. Hey, Ashwin, how was the show yesterday? See, it was a brilliant show.
Hello, young achiever of the year.
Morning, sir.
Morning, what's up?
Coffee?
Break already, yeah? Evening, 7 p.m., con call.
Sure, sir. I'll log in from home.
No, office.
Sure, sir.
Tea break, coffee break. I don't
know what bothers me where I go. Mr. Ji? Sir. Arey, baithiye. You don't have to. By the way, the project that was in the pipeline, we got it. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
In fact, I was talking to Pooja about how the client loved your presentation and he's very happy with it. We'll be going forward. But chota sa problem hai. The client wants to run the production in 2 locations simultaneously.
No problem.
Which will involve a lot of traveling.
Sir, I can.
I know. Which is exactly why I asked Pooja to take the lead so you can relax.
So now what do you say?
Arey, I was just showing empathy, considering he's disabled.
You mean differently able?
Yeah, that's what. But boss here was mean to me.
It's not as if you are perfect, Akshay. You judged me because of my disability.
Excuse me? Look who's talking. You judge me just because of the dress I'm wearing. Women don't dress just to impress people, by the way.
By the way, you keep saying I get perks because I'm from Madras. That's also not cool.
No, but that's a joke.
Oh,
yeah.
but when it happens to you, it's okay.
But you know.
Okay. I want to hear from some of you in the chat. is this something that you've noticed or experienced where there's some form of groupism that happens just because you belong, just because you share a common language, because you come from the same place, or because you're of the same age, etc.? All right, yes, I see on the chat that some of you have responded yes. Okay, now we also notice that these kind of comments that are made are very, very sort of unintentional, harmless. People take it in fun. Arey, it's just a joke, yaar. It's nothing. Don't be so serious about it. But these are what we call microaggressions. These are very often extremely subtle and very, very unintentional actions or comments that we make that sometimes does make the individual feel a little excluded, right? And these come from, it's a very unconscious thing. It is an unconscious bias that we have. It's some of the biases or stereotypes that we have learned growing up that comes out at our workplace, that comes out in our interactions with people, right? And these microaggressions can take place based on someone's race, someone's skin color, someone's ability, someone's gender, how influential the person is, or even how attractive they are, how good looking they are. And sometimes just because of that, they get certain kind of preferential treatment. And it's these kind of very microaggressions and micro inequities that some individuals who experience it, especially for a longer period of time, they do feel alone. They do feel like they don't belong. And these are usually, as you noticed in the video as well, they can also be conveyed through facial expressions. It's not always just overt words or actions, but through facial expressions, through gestures, through body language. I also see on chat that, yes, some of you talked about prejudice, stereotypes, discrimination. Exactly. And we don't really do much about it because these are so subtle, and the impact is not very overt. Like, if you hear such a comment, you usually have a tendency to just let it go. Yeah. I want to actually share some more examples with you. So let's see. With the way you look and dress, I'm sure you will get great feedback or promotion. Or why are you so upset about this? Are you PMSing? Clearly we know who wears the pants in the relationships, addressing gender stereotypes. You speak English so well, considering where you're from, talking to somebody who's from a tier 3 city or whose primary language is not English. Or have you noticed in how certain meetings, whenever there's a man speaking, everyone's really paying attention, etc. But as soon as a woman comes up, everyone starts checking their phone. They usually take a seat back and not very engaged, etc. Or commenting on someone's appearance, someone's weight, telling someone who's a little bit heavier than you that, oh, you're so brave for wearing such clothes. I can never wear such clothes. I'm so conscious of how I look. Or the fact that I like that you don't act like typical women. What does that mean? Does that mean that a typical woman is not a good person? Is that what kind of a judgment are we making over there? Or someone ignoring the presence of somebody else at workplace and not making them feel included. Right? These are all very minute, very subtle behaviors that exist in workplace that does exactly the opposite of creating a warm, inclusive environment, right? I want to talk about what the impact of being subjected to microaggressions for a longer period of time often leads to. One of the most common impact is feeling excluded. And this may then continue to lead to a person having low self-esteem, confidence, not being so sure to speak up or where they stand amongst their colleagues. They may experience loneliness, shame, sometimes even frustration and anger. Because of this, you may also see a drop in productivity because they may not feel very engaged or motivated to work. They may isolate themselves. They may feel helpless, not valued. And yes, long-term impact also leads to substance abuse, just to cope with dealing with all of this. Yeah. I am going to now shift gears a little and talk about some other more overt type of inappropriate behaviors. What we saw right now was a bit more covert, and we will be talking about how to address these towards the end. All right. Have you heard of this term sexual harassment? If you can use chat to quickly, yes, and thumbs up also works. Thank you, ma'am. Yes, great. So I guess you must have heard about it at your workplace, at your previous workplace, online, on social media, or even in the news. So before we talk about what sexual harassment means, I want to show you all another video.
This colleague of mine, should I name her? Okay, so this colleague, friend colleague, ये उस लड़के को पहले से ही जानती थी, तो हम साथ में हैंग आउट करने लगे, लंच पे साथ जाते थे, बाहर ऑफिस में मिल लिया. He's not from sales, not that it's an issue, but she thought we would really get along. तो एक टाइम के बाद मुझे भी लगा कि हमारी तो काफ़ी सही बन रही है. वैसे इज अ बिट क्वाइट टाइप, सो शायद ही फील्स अ बिट कॉन्शियस, यू नो, बट अदरवाइज सबको लगा कि हमारी केमिस्ट्री तो एकदम सही है.
तो तुमने किया उसके बारे में कुछ?
नो, आई मीन एक दो बार मेरे फ्रेंड्स जानबूझकर लेट आए हमें अलोन टाइम देने के लिए. सबको ही लगा एक दिन इज गोना आस्क मी आउट ऑन अ डेट, बट आई अंडरस्टैंड देयर आर गाइज हु आर शाय, जिनको लगता है लड़की पहले इशारा दे कोई, तो मैंने दिया. देन आई वाज अ बिट मोर फ्लर्टेशियस, यू नो, आई गेस. देन देयर वाज दिस ऑफिस पार्टी. वहाँ तो मैंने पूछ ही लिया, हेलो क्या है, व्हेन आर यू गोना किस मी?
और फिर?
गायब. नो मैसेजेस, फ़ोन ही नहीं उठा रहा मेरे. देन आई टेक्सटेड हिम सेइंग, अरे मजाक था, आई वॉज जोकिंग.
वर यू जोकिंग?
दूसरी कंपनी में चला गया वो. आई मीन सिर्फ मेरी वजह से तो नहीं हो सकता ये सब. आई एम श्योर ही वॉज प्रोफेशनली अनसेटिस्फाइड.
तो आपको क्यों लगा वो आपको पसंद करता है?
मेरे दोस्तों ने ना थोड़ा कुछ चढ़ा दिया था ज़्यादा. इन माई माइंड ऑल्सो इट वॉज ऑल रियली परफेक्ट. यूजली लड़के ऐसी बातों पर फ्लैट हो जाते हैं, बट ही नेवर रियली एक्सप्रेस्ड हिमसेल्फ. मुझे कैसे पता चलेगा हाउ डज ही रियली फील?
पर कभी पूछा आपने उसको?
नो, आई डिडंट. मीन्स आई हैव टू. लड़का है वो. इफ यू आर नॉट इनटू इट, जस्ट से इट. नो.
Okay. I think one of the first misconceptions that we have when we talk about sexual harassment is that it's something that only women experience, which I don't believe is true, right? Sexual harassment is not a gender issue. It's not about women. It is an issue about power dynamics. It is an issue about inequalities between the relationships, but it's not only a women issue. Yes, statistically, women experience it a lot more, but that doesn't mean that men also don't experience sexual harassment, or that other genders, other minorities, people belonging to the LGBTQIA communities, they don't experience sexual harassment. Right? As you noticed in this video, there were very subtle, so in the beginning, there were very subtle kind of indications that she was interested in him. She would try to spend some alone time with him. In fact, even her colleagues gave her or pushed her to have some alone time. And this made him really, really uncomfortable, right? To the point that maybe he is the type of person who doesn't feel comfortable initiating or sharing how they really feel. Right? And the assumption that, oh, just because he's a boy or a man, he should speak up. You know, that, oh, just because he's a man, I don't need to ask him for consent. Right? If you're not into it, then he should say it first. Why should I ask them? These type of gender stereotypes or understanding of gender roles can really affect our relationships at work, whether it's talking about sexual harassment or about microaggressions, right? Yes, I see on chat that someone's agreeing with me that yes, men and women both experience this situation. Exactly. So in simpler terms, if I was to explain sexual harassment, it's essentially someone's boundaries getting crossed through behaviors which have a sexual meaning, right? And this can look like any behavior. It can be physical, verbal, non-verbal, through gestures, etc. So any behavior which has a sexual connotation, which is experienced as unwanted and unwelcome by the recipient, right? The person didn't invite for this kind of behavior. And also this may or may not be directed towards the recipient. So it may not necessarily be true that it's targeted at one person individually. It can also happen that maybe there's a group in the office who's chatting about some movie that they recently saw, and they are commenting on someone's dresses and singing these double meaning Bollywood songs, and you happen to be working in the same environment. Now, imagine when you're hearing such kind of conversations from your colleagues, you will pause for a second and think of, oh, this is how they think of people, or this is the kind of conversations they have. Now, the next time you work with them, that is something that may play in your head. It may make you uncomfortable, right? So it may not be directed at you, but even if it's something that's happening in the environment at work, it would have an impact, right? Also, this is regardless of the intention of the person behaving in such a manner. So if, for example, someone says, hey, you're looking quite hot today. I really love these pants on you. And say somebody said that to me and I felt uncomfortable. And then I said, I would appreciate if you don't compliment me that way. And maybe the person says, hey, chill yaar, I was just complimenting you. Don't need to take it so seriously all the time. So the person is clarifying that their intention was maybe not to sexually harass you, but the impact that it had on me was that it did make me uncomfortable, perhaps because of the rapport that we share. So whenever we talk about sexual harassment, impact will always take precedence over intent, right? We do look at the person's intention, but it becomes secondary. Okay, now let's look at the different types of sexual harassment that often takes place. One is physical contact or advances such as stroking, poking, pinching somebody, groping someone, sometimes even going too close and standing to somebody while trying to talk about some confidential matter, or maybe cornering a person in such a way that if that person wants to get out, they have to touch through your body and go. Right? It can also look like inappropriate comments or demand or request for sexual favors, saying things like, hey, come on, you're only 25. Don't hormones affect you? Or making sexually colored remarks like looking at someone saying, "Arey, aaj to nazar ko thandak mil gayi." Or commenting and saying that, hey, why don't you wear that pink shirt of yours? Your biceps look really good in that. It can even include sharing of text messages, images, memes, videos, which has sexually implicit or explicit content. Okay. Now, most of us who work together have also befriended each other on social media platforms, right? Like Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, so many other new platforms that also exist. Now, these are personal spaces where we do share whatever we are up to in our life, depending on whatever their personal preferences are. Now, it's also, so when you are interacting with a colleague in such a space, and when you are tagging each other on content which may have sexually implicit or explicit material, this may also, and if it makes the other person uncomfortable, this would also count as sexual harassment. Right? Even if it's happening on social media, but just because the interaction is happening between two people at workplace, it would be considered as sexual harassment at workplace. Because let's think of it. When we are interacting with people offline, outside of workspaces, tomorrow morning, we have to get up and come and work together. And do you really think that it's not going to affect your work at all? Something that's happening in your personal space, do you think that it won't affect your work? Right? It can also include any other verbal, non-verbal conduct of sexual nature. So when we talk about sexual harassment, it's not like I can give you a list of these 50 behaviors and that's what we call sexual harassment. No, it can be any behavior through any kind of mode of expression, as long as it has a sexual meaning and it's experienced as uncomfortable and unwanted by someone. Help me understand, what are some other instances of gestures or body language that may make somebody feel uncomfortable? I'm going to open the chat and wait for you to reply. How about staring at someone? Blatant staring, yes. Touching private parts in public, leering, stalking someone, right? Winking, whistling, catcalling, right? Or making gestures through your lips or you're using your fingers and your hands, which are sexually indicative. Or have you heard of something known as elevator eyes or scanner eyes? You know, when you look at somebody from top to bottom, or what we call checking them out. These kind of behaviors can also make someone feel very, very uncomfortable. Okay. Now, I want to talk about the law. This law came into being in 2013. And yes, as you can see on the screen, this law is specifically for women. So we talk about sexual harassment of women at workplace. And I think all of us over here can understand why the nation felt that there is a need to come up with a special law for women. Because yes, statistically, they are a minority and they do experience it a lot more. That being said, I also agree that it should be sexual harassment at workplace and it should cover everyone regardless of their gender. And that is exactly what we try to do when we talk about implementation of the law. We make sure that there are gender inclusive policies and that it's not just for women. Okay. So let's look at this. Now, compliance-wise, this law is applicable to all organizations. This also includes educational institutions, schools, NGOs, any type of organization, any type of workplace, which has more than 10 employees. And even if these 10 employees are all males, that also the compliance requirement would still be applicable to you. It doesn't say that the employees need to have women at workplace. Okay. Now, let's look at what these compliance requirements look like. So the law says that there should be a policy which is specifically targeting sexual harassment, that the policy should be circulated amongst everyone, that the organization should also constitute an internal committee. Now, internal committee is a special trained committee that inquires into complaints of sexual harassment. Okay, so they are sort of the gatekeepers of the law at the organization. The IC, the internal committee, also has to be registered with all district bodies. In fact, just right now on 13th May this year, the Supreme Court the Supreme Court has told all the jurisdictions, all the state and union territories to start implementing this law quite strictly, right? So we see that since 2013 to 2023, actually way less than 50% of the workplaces in India are actually complying with the law. And I'll also talk about the impact of non-compliance a bit later. Some of the other compliance requirements include, there's some documentation involved, so which means submission of annual report or providing details in the organization's report. The law also talks about creating awareness through having notices or posters, whether it's in your in-person physical office space or whether you share it via email if you're working remotely or from home. It also includes regular trainings and awareness programs for employees and training of IC members. Okay, now let's quickly go through who can file a complaint under this? So since there is a law and the law talks about prevention, prohibition, and redressal, so we know that the prevention and prohibition is happening through policies, through trainings, through awareness. I want to briefly tell you all about what the redressal looks like. So when I say redressal, we are talking about what happens when there's a complaint of sexual harassment. Now, as you can see, as per the law is very specific to women. So they say that any women, whether employed or not, can file a complaint of sexual harassment. So even if there's a woman who, say, for instance, has come to your workplace and they are not working over there. Let's say some person has come to deliver some post and she's a woman and she doesn't work at your organization. And say she experiences sexual harassment by one of the employees. She can still file a complaint. This law also covers the unorganized sector, which means the domestic help that we have in our house. All of us, many of us have people who come to our house and help us out with either cooking, cleaning, gardening, any of these. Now, these are not so-called official labor. We don't have any contracts with them, but they are also protected under the law. And if they want to file and because then we become the employer, if they want to file a complaint against us, they can do so with there's also a local district committee. There's a local committee in every city that we live in. Now, as I mentioned, I know that the law is only for women, but we usually try and ensure that whenever organizations are implementing these compliances, we create a gender inclusive policy. This means that we want to make sure that all employees, regardless of their gender, so we don't even say just man and women, we include everyone, right? People who don't identify as a woman or a man as well. And so in this way, we can ensure that everyone who's working in the organization has a way to raise an issue if they ever experience such inappropriate behaviors. Now we know who can file a complaint. Let's see against whom can we file a complaint. So as per the law, the complaint can be filed against any employee, right? Over here, the law has not mentioned any specific gender. So we can file a complaint against anyone, whether they are a man or a woman or any other gender. Okay. Now, for your organization to look into the complaint of sexual harassment, it has to be an employee of your organization. If it is some other employee, then the complaint will be forwarded to that organization, right? Because your organization can only take action on your employees. They can't take any action on other employees. They have no legal jurisdiction. So in that way, depending on where the person is working, that's the organization where you'll have to file a complaint. Now, I understand that street sexual harassment or sexual harassment happening in public spaces is also a very, very common occurrence. To address that, the Indian Penal Code also acknowledges and recognizes sexual harassment as an offense, and you can also file an FIR if you experience it in public places and not at work, not at workplace. All right. So it is also something that is punishable under the law, and there is a sentence of 3 to 5 years of imprisonment and even fine under the IPC. Okay. Now, since we are talking about sexual harassment at workplace, becomes very, very important to understand what is workplace, right? So the law is very vague on this. It says that any place visited by the employee arising out of or during the course of employment, which means that whether we go to work physically, whether we work from home, whether we are working remotely and connecting like this online, on video conferences, on phone calls, on emails, on WhatsApp, or we go to offsites, we go for trainings outside. All of these are considered to be workplaces. Even when you go outside and let's say that your organization, your company has arranged for a travel for you, whether it's a cab, if something happens over there, it's still workplace. If you are staying in a hotel because of work reasons, because you're traveling for work, the hotel will also become workplace. So it basically means that anywhere that you go for your work, Or even sometimes, we are maybe working from outside, from cafes, and we meet some of our colleagues over there and we are working over there. That will also count as workplace, right? And we like to believe that because the interpretation of the definition of workplace is so vast, we use this one very simple funda to help us identify what is workplace for us. Okay, so two conditions: whether when it's happening between people who are working together, all right, regardless of where it happens, and if there is a chance that it's going to impact the workplace environment. So even if you're meeting informally outside, going out for informal parties, lunches, dinners, whatever, if something happens over there, and if you think that it is going to have a direct impact at workplace, it's going to create a very uncomfortable, unfavorable working environment, then we would consider it to be workplace. Because we do believe that the whole aim of having this law is to make the workplace a little bit safer, a little bit psychologically safer, so that people feel comfortable where they spend most of their time, so that they feel like, okay, they can speak up, they can grow, develop professionally as well. All right. Now, as I mentioned, the internal committee is a body that is, as per the law, trained to look into complaints of sexual harassment. So as you see on the screen, the committee has to have a minimum of 4 members. Maximum, there's no limit. The committee has to be headed by a woman employee at a senior level. The committee also has to have 2 other members who are employees. And there also has to be an external member from another organization. This is to make sure that there is a third perspective and there is no bias happening. Right? Now, at least 50% of the members have to be women as per the law. And this committee is for a time period of 3 years, after which it is reconstituted. Okay. Now, I want to also briefly talk to you about how whenever there's a complaint that comes up, how does a committee look into it, right? So the law is very, very fair and transparent on this. The committee, whenever there's a complaint, will invite both the parties, the complainant, person who has filed a complaint, and respondent, somebody against whom complaint was filed. We don't call this person accused, because we don't know if they've actually done something like this. So we give both of them a fair and equal chance to make their case. And if somebody is found guilty of sexual harassment, the type of consequences that the committee recommends includes apology letter, warning, counseling sessions, stopping their promotion or stopping their increment. And the worst of all is you may get terminated from your job. So depending on the severity of sexual harassment, these kind of actions can be recommended. Now, I also want to say that if the complaint is found to be false or malicious, if there is proof that the complaint is false or malicious, the same consequences are applicable to the complainant also. All right. So it is a very fair, transparent process where not the process, but also the consequences are applicable to both, depending on what the outcome is. Okay. I know this is a bit of a dry topic, because when we talk about laws, it becomes a little bit technical. So I am sure that this is the last slide that I'm going to leave you with on the law specifically. Now, when we talk about compliance, there also is penalties when there's non-compliance. So failure to constitute an IC at an organization, or breach of any provision. So whether if you don't have a policy, if there are no posters, if the annual report doesn't get submitted and on time, it can be amounted to 50,000 rupees. Or subsequent, if the penalty is applicable more than once, it can also lead to cancellation or withdrawal of your organization's license or of the registration. In one of the cases that we saw in 2014, there was a company in Chennai where a woman had filed a complaint. Yes, there were a lot of factors involved, but because of its failure to comply with the law, they ended up paying 1.68 crores to the law and the woman who had filed the complaint of sexual harassment. So apart from not to say that we should comply with the law only for creating safe workplaces, but the law has also ensured that if this doesn't happen, there are severe penalties applicable as well. Okay. Now, we have spoken about what microaggressions look like, what inappropriate behaviors like sexual harassment, discrimination at workplace looks like. Let's talk about now, how do we create a culture of safety, mutual respect, and inclusion? Now, before we do that, before I directly talk about how we can create this, I want to know, what does it even look like? What does feeling safe, feeling respected, or feeling included at work even look like? So I'm going to hold over here and I'm going to ask you all to respond on chat. What do you think this feeling of being safe at work looks like? What does it make possible when you feel respected at work, when you feel included at work? Because I believe that once we know what it looks like, we know what to do about it. Okay. Yes, we are able to express ourselves fully. What else? Absolutely. Our productivity is high. All of us feel valued. We feel motivated. Okay. Yes, feedbacks are taken promptly. We feel comfortable in how we present and bring ourselves to the organization. So let's look at this. When we feel safe and respected and included, we feel like, okay, we have a sense of control over ourselves and over the environment. We don't feel lost. We don't feel directionless, right? We feel like we belong, right? Like we feel like, okay, I'm going to wake up. Today is Monday. We had a great weekend. Oof, I'm really, really tired. It's Monday. But no, I really like going to my place of work. So I'm going to be a little bit happy about it. We are at peace, right? We feel supported by our peers. We are able to speak up for ourselves. What is extremely important is that we feel confident to disagree. We feel comfortable knowing that we can share our opinion, even if it is different from others, that we are not going to be humiliated or ridiculed or made fun of if we speak up. And we feel confident to handle stressful situations, right? So now that we know what it looks like to feel safe and respected and included at work, let's look at what are some of the things, what are some practices that we can implement to make sure that this happens. Okay. Now, the list on the left-hand side is specifically for things that organizations can do at a macro level. So one is they can comply with the specific laws. They can create inclusive policies and practices. This includes having inclusive policies right from recruiting new employees up until the employee life cycle ends and they are leaving the organization, right? So ensuring that you are focusing on individuals, the talent they bring, their expertise, and not on their gender, not on their race, not on their appearance, not on their color, right? Creating awareness sessions, whether the sessions include talking about unconscious biases, talking about stereotypes, prejudices, talking about inappropriate behaviors, right? Having gender sensitization sessions so that both men and women feel comfortable working with each other. Sometimes I've noticed that specifically male managers struggle to work with their subordinate female managers, right? So these kind of trainings can really help provide them with tools to know how to work together, to make sure that there are robust grievance redressal mechanisms. So not just for addressing sexual harassment, but also for addressing other types of grievances. Having an open door policy or a 360-degree feedback, where we make sure that we hear from everybody around us, not just from those who are above us or below us. We make sure that if ever you are feeling uncomfortable, you are feeling safe and comfortable to go and speak up with your supervisor, right? And some of the things that we as employees can also do on a personal level with our teams, etc., is just being mindful of our own unconscious biases. I'm sure that many of us have been the ones to make these comments that we saw in the beginning about microaggressions. In fact, I have found myself doing that at times. And it is really important that once we are able to just become more conscious of it, we'll catch ourselves doing it. And it will decrease automatically, right? Knowing what other people's boundaries are, what their boundaries are in terms of physical boundaries, whether it's okay to put our hands on their shoulders or hug them without asking. So really knowing what other people's boundaries are, not just physical boundaries, but also mental, emotional boundaries. Like not asking somebody personal questions like, oh, when are you planning to get married? Or where are you going on a honeymoon? Or when are you planning to have babies? Or do you have a boyfriend or girlfriend or not? Right? Just knowing where we are and whether the person will be okay if we have these kind of conversations with them. Saying and accepting a no, right? Feeling comfortable to say no if you don't want to commit to something, do something at work, and the other person accepting that no. Now, this doesn't mean that if you are given work and you don't want to do the work, you say no, right? I'm not talking about just work over here. I'm talking about interactions where people are expecting you to do something which is a little bit beyond work, right? Avoid the bystander effect. If you are noticing somebody else get uncomfortable or you're noticing somebody else behaving inappropriately, speak up, intervene. You can go and report it or you can intervene directly over there as well, right? Discouraging others, acknowledging our own mistakes, taking accountability when we have messed up, when we have made an error, acknowledging it, taking accountability of it, making repair, apologizing, right? And when we find ourselves in situations where we may not understand how we were at fault, or we may not understand how somebody felt uncomfortable by something that we did, let's be curious. Let's ask, okay, what is it that I did? How did it affect you? Right? Let's try to have an open, curious mind to understand how we can be the best versions of ourselves. Okay. And with that said, I see I've run a little few minutes over time, and I'm going to pause over here and thank you all so much for being here with me. I'll suppose we can now take questions, comments.
Pankti, there's something you want to say, continue, because, most of what you said, even me, like when you showed the microaggression video, there were so many things I found myself doing. So if there is something that you would like to cover, please do cover. I'm sure our participants would really like to hear it if you were missed out.
Okay. No, I think I mean, there's a lot that I can cover, which would require a lot more time. For now, I'm just going to pause. If there's something specifically that you want to know, I'm happy to talk more about it. But for now, I'm going to pause, if that's okay.
Sure. So before we move on to the question and answer session, I would now like to request the audience to take 30 seconds to answer a poll for us. The purpose of the poll is to help us understand you a little better so we can better curate the topics that we bring to you. You can also share in the chat box how you found out about Vishwa Talks, what kind of topics you want us to put in Vishwa Talks. If there's something we're not covering and which is pertinent to the relevant times, please feel free to write down the topics. If you also know any speakers who are really good and expert in those topics, please do let us know. We'll contact them. If you are a Vishwa Talk subscriber, heard about it through friends or family, or found out about our event on social media, please share. And we also request for those of you who are regular Vishwa Talk participants, if you have not yet subscribed into Vishwa Talks, please press the link which will be in your chat box so that we are comfortable to send you on WhatsApp and other media, because these days the restrictions are very high and we need permissions to send them to you. While you take the survey, I would like to express my gratitude to each and every one of you who have joined us today for your presence, with your presence. I extend my gratitude to our respected speaker, Ms. Pankti Gohel. for taking time to grace this event. Fantastic topic, very relevant, and very misunderstood or not understood topic. Yeah, about what is Vishwa. I'd like to share a little bit about Vishwa, our mission, how you can contribute. Vishwa is an online platform for everyday change makers and social champions. Ms. Pankti Gohel is an example of it. Imagine such a young lady starting and heading an organization on her own on such a relevant topic. It's a crowdfunding and crowdsourcing platform that is aimed at helping anyone find the support they need in their efforts to fulfill dreams for themselves and for others, in the process, making our world a better place. In addition to thought-provoking talks such as the one hosted today, we also want to extend the curiosity of exploration to our youth and young ones as well. We have launched 2 new segments of Vishwa Talks, namely Vishwa Talks Youth and Vishwa Talks Junior, to facilitate learning and important conversations in the bright minds of the new generation. If any of you know schools who would be interested in subscribing to our emailers and to our Vishwa Talks, we specifically have separate talks going on for them. Please do let us know and ensure these schools subscribe to and children subscribe to Vishwa Talks Junior. We have Vishwa Materials. Imagine living in an economy where sharing is truly caring. And whatever you don't need, whether it is books, electronics, furniture, could easily be listed and picked up by members of the community. Vishwa Materials is a crowdsourcing platform designed to distribute materials to local communities. We have every Diwali and every Ugadi, we do a pickup program where we go to the people's houses and pick up. The remaining part of the year, you can leave it at our designated places. It was such a huge success last Ugadi in April. There were around 4 trucks distributed in the slums of Hyderabad. Hyderabad has 150 slums. We were able to distribute it in around 3 to 4 slums. And there were many youngsters who came forward and said, hey, listen, degree, they've completed their degree or they're doing their degree or going to college, and they would come and say, hey, listen, our whole years of clothes requirement has been taken care of. We don't need to buy anything this year. So please do participate in this venture of Vishwa. Then there are the fundraisers. I remember my father was a very generous man. He was a member of parliament and we had an office. We eternally had a house in Delhi and there was an office besides the house. And anybody from Andhra Pradesh could come there. And anybody asked him anything, he could do. But if someone asked me and said, hey, listen, I need a seat for my child in a school, can you help me? I would say, I don't know the principal. I don't know anybody. How will I even go ask? But I have seen such generosity with him. He wouldn't know the person, but they would just come home and the gates were always open. The office was always open. He would come, talk to them, be empathetic, listen to them, go and speak to the relevant minister or relevant people, get the job done. And if it is not done, he would follow it up even if it took a few months. This generosity, which I saw in him, is something I try to emulate. And I know that I have a lot of inhibitions in requesting. But now I'm requesting each of you. There is a online fundraising platform in Vishwa. There are people who need. And if you believe that these are genuine causes, and if you believe that you know someone who is capable of donating, please share the links of these fundraisers to the people you know. Whether it is to Kanashrai Foundation, whether it is to Bal Vikas Education Society, whether any of the fundraisers, NTP, which is donate nutrition food for children living with HIV and AIDS. There are many such fundraisers. We would like you all to create a community where even if you're donating 1 rupee is okay, if you're donating 30 rupees is okay, if you're donating 1,000 rupees is okay. Make it a habit to donate something that you are happy to do. Please do it. I'd like to lastly talk about the upcoming Vishwa Talks. The speaker is Bernard Alonso. The organization he represents is Permaculture Humane International. He's the founder, and the topic is Introduction to Human Permaculture Interaction. The date and time is 3rd June 2023, 11 a.m. We have another talk by speaker Vivek J.L. Mincherial. I hope I'm spelling it correctly. Okay. Many times I live in a house with a huge garden, or sometimes my house is actually surrounded by a farm also. And I've been living here for 20, 30 years, and I know when a snake will come, what will happen, I have no clue. And here we have Vivek coming from the organization Ashray Home for Animals. He's the animal rescuer, pet groomer, and trainer out there. The topic he's going to talk about is snake awareness and first aid in case of bites. 10th June 2023, 11 a.m. So if I had a snake bite, I wouldn't know what to do. I wouldn't know which snakes are dangerous, which snakes are not dangerous. I sometimes, we teach our children about swimming, driving, cooking. But these are little things that, if we can build a little awareness, would take us a long way. So please do attend and ask people who would be interested to attend to. There is the next talk coming up on 17th June 2023. Dr. Aditya Deshbandhu. He's from Teacher Plus. Teacher Plus is a wonderful organization. I know this lady, Mrs. Usha. For years, for decades, she's been serving in building up the caliber of teachers. Today, the profession teachers is not given the respect it deserves. There was a time in India when we called Guru Devo Bhava. But today, if you don't get any other job, you're picking up a teacher's job. Most teachers are not trained. But here is a lady who's contributed a lifetime to training teachers and building that foundation.
I think there's the network issue on the other side. Dr. Aditya Deshbandhu is the lecturer of digital media sociology at University of Exeter, UK. The topic he's going to be talking on is visualizing games as building blocks for a successful tomorrow. The date and time is 17th June 2023, 11 a.m. The next talk right after that is on the course Health and Family Welfare. It's by the speaker is Radhika Ayatollah, and she's from the organization Ra Foundation. She's the trustee and founder of Ra Foundation. She's going to be talking about how mudras can help you balance your mind and body, and also deal with sicknesses. And the date and time for the webinar is 24 June 2023, 11 a.m. Lastly, please take a moment to subscribe to Vishwa Talks to get alerts on every new and exciting talk, exclusive events, and access to the Vishwa community. Follow us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. I'd now request the audience to continue with the question and answer session. Hello, Pankti. I'm going to pick up some questions from the chat box and bring them to you.
Just, Trishant, before you do that, I actually saw a comment that I want to just highlight a little bit. I see one of you mentioned that in the workplace, emotional safety happens when employees feel safe enough to show up. However, creating this safety doesn't happen overnight, and it takes work. And I cannot agree with this enough. It takes years, if not more, to create a culture, to actually not even create a culture, because what we are doing is we are shifting the culture. We are changing the culture. The culture already exists. And so if we want to change that culture, which means that every one of us will have to change a little bit of our mindset, a little bit of our habits, a little bit of our interactions. And yes, this takes work. It takes consistent efforts across all levels, from management to the grassroots level. And so I just want to say that thank you for making that comment. Yeah. Over to you, Tisha.
Thank you. We have
A question, Pankti. Most times, especially when you showed us the microaggressions, simple things. Hey,
Ma'am, your voice is-
at least I didn't realize was crossing boundaries. But when you shared, it's not about whether you cross boundaries, it's about the impact you have on the other person, the impact on their mental, emotional, and their physical boundaries is what you need to be sensitive about. Is something which is very new to me too. I did not, and I could relate it to not just about sexual harassment, but also to normal communication in our interactions at workplaces. I think this is something that you sharing has opened up a whole new perspective to each of the participant in this talk. Thank you so much.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
please carry on.
we have a question from Dr. John Sarkar. Can an advocate get empaneled as external NGO member in the IC?
Yeah. So the law actually states that the external member has to be from an organization who is working towards the cause of preventing sexual harassment, or is in the cause of social work where they're working with women and minorities. So it can be anyone who can be on the, yeah.
We have the next question is.
But the organization,
sorry, ma'am?
If the organization is small,
even then, sorry, can you repeat again?
Even if the organization just has 5-10 employees?
Okay. So if the organization has less than 10 employees, then they don't have to comply with the law in the sense that there's no internal committee, etc., because there has to be at least 4 members. So if 4 out of 5 members are internal committee, it's a little difficult. So in that case, there is a local committee in every district. So this local committee is responsible to make sure that these organizations, which is even the unorganized sector, like the domestic help that we have at house, or organizations smaller than 10, that's where they can go to if there is a case of sexual harassment or if there's anything that they need to do. Regardless, I would always recommend that even if you have a small workplace, apart from the law, apart from complying the law, I think that it's important that we still start actively working on our work culture. And if we can start having these type of conversations at a very sort of nascent place, I think that'd be really helpful.
We have a question from Shrikant. How can we say that there is gender equality in India? Is it true that we have equality? We are following equal opportunity for men and women. Men and women experience the situation like harassment, etc. Pankti ma'am, please tell me about this.
Okay. I don't believe there's gender equality in India. In fact, I don't believe there's gender equality anywhere in the world. Yeah, anywhere in the world. We are far away from that.
Yeah, we're still trying to understand how many genders should be taken seriously.
Yes.
Because you're finding new terminologies every day. It's just creating more of a mess when you kind of disintegrate it more and more, rather than making it more and more inclusive and common for everybody. So, I'm going to read some testimonial. Anuradha Naidu, my name is Anuradha. I would like to say 2 things. Now, how can Vishwatalks expand the reach on community development topics like sexual harassment to small firms like clinics too? And female doctors do face. Okay, this is probably related. So I'm going to address this right after the session. That's about it from our side. From the audience.
I have a
Yeah,
question.
please.
As what I've noticed in businesses in India is sometimes work hours get over at 5, but men meet up in pubs or outside for dinner, and decisions are taken out at dinner times. How do women handle this situation?
I don't know how women can handle this situation when men are not, when people who are taking these decisions outside have not created an inclusive place for us, right? I feel like this is something that at a leadership level, at a management level, they need to be very conscious of. And let's say, even if they are making such decisions, having such conversations outside, that maybe they can repeat and have the same conversations next day in the office when there are others present as well. In fact, I see that this kind of a situation, yes, many a times women do experience it more. In fact, even, there are some organizations, there are some groups, some employees in the organization who they do like to go out after work hours and spend time, and they'll end up discussing work. And there is still a certain group of people, including all genders, who don't have the time to be able to have such conversations outside because they have so many other responsibilities, families, etc. outside. So I feel like when we are talking about truly creating an inclusive culture, this means that making sure everybody has a voice, making sure everybody has space to contribute to whatever conversations and discussions that are happening. So if we are used to having these conversations outside, maybe the next step we can do is let's bring them back to the organization where everybody else can also contribute to it.
For a woman who wants to grow up the ladder, she needs to deliver, but the society is such, when if I'm the head of the organization, yes, I will work towards creating an inclusive environment. But when I'm a part of the organization and I'm not a head of the organization, and this is the system in the country, you will have to go with it. And so what happens is, when either you choose and say, hey, I'm coming out for dinner to discuss this, and you face harassment, or you say, okay, I will have to lose a part of my career by not participating in this. These are issues that need to be discussed. May not be now, but at least in the future things. Another thing I've noticed is, today in our country, there is a lot of corruption at every level, whether it is administrative, whether it is in the judicial level. And how does a woman go and handle these situations if she is in a managerial position?
Sorry, ma'am, I missed out on the last thing.
There's a lot of corruption in this country. Today, corruption has become a day-to-day affair. And you are a manager. You need to get the job done. And it's very difficult for a woman to actually go and get the jobs done.
Yeah. I agree.
So, and what do you do when someone just holds your hand or say, hey, let's meet in a hotel room, or let's meet, how does someone handle all that? What is your advice?
I think this would really depend on a case-to-case basis. I do believe that many a times, I think we end up having to choose between our careers sometimes, because that is what comes at stake, right? Like the fear that if I don't go with this, I'm going to end up losing my job, or that if I go with this, then the impact that it would have is just very, very, very big. Very drastic to think of. I think that really depending on what kind of a situation you are in, I know that sometimes it is possible to just say no, or offer a diplomatic solution, or offer another way out, and then maybe take it up with the organization. But I do notice that I feel like the more than, so I know that we are really looking for what is it that women can do to get out of these situations. And sure, maybe we can come up with a lot of things that women can do, but I'm not sure how sustainable or how helpful they even would be, just because of the sheer impact of it. If we are to disagree, if we are to say no to it, and we maybe walk away with a loss of job, we maybe walk away with a, so I think that what would be very important is to highlight this to the management, to the leadership level, or to bring it up in a public forum, which is what we've seen in the Me Too movement that was happening. That the impact was on its organizations, where they realized that, okay, they are not doing enough to help create a positive environment for their employees, for women at workplace. So in these situations, like specifically, let's say if a woman is being invited to a hotel room, really, I mean, I hope that the woman has the strength in her, the courage in her to be able to say no, and to then later take it up with the concerned authorities. I know that there's no straightforward answer to this, that women are dealing with this every day.
So I'll share my experiences.
Yes, please.
So number one, if someone says, hey, let's move in, let's meet at a hotel, I would ensure there were two men coming along with me. Number one. Number two, I used to ask other women, successful women, hey, what do you do? How do you handle situations like this? So I remember this lady, she was a consumer judge. And she told me, as a woman, you know whether the person is actually interested in you and making a pass. You know the feeling. And when you know how to deal with him. Whether you want to deal with it, or you can send another colleague of yours to deal with the person on the same situation. But please understand, in our business houses, in our organizations, no one is interested in whether the woman is safe or not safe. What they're interested is in getting the business moving forward. Women need to tend to themselves.
Absolutely.
And they need to ensure that they are not in positions of where they are in unsafe places, where they're alone with someone, where they're with people who are very powerful. It's how we carry ourselves. These are situations, these are issues that need to be spoken, especially now, because more and more women are going into workplaces. And workplaces is just not the IT houses. Workplaces is in all cities, all kinds of towns, all kinds of locations, and all kinds of positions, whether it is in the government, whether it is in the private organization. These are topics which need to be spoken about.
Absolutely. Maybe this just gives me an idea that maybe this is something that we need to maybe do next. We create a community where we hear from other women who have experienced these situations and how they have responded and reacted to it. And maybe that will inspire other women and maybe just inform them to know what can be done. Maybe that's something that that I think that would be a really interesting survey as well.
I think we need to look at, I remember one, when I was working in my previous job, we were supposed to receive 100 crores. And the IAS officer, in spite of the chief minister ready to give it, did not pass it. Because all he was interested in having an affair. So these are issues where people get impacted and you just have to live through it.
Yeah.
And these are issues that I want us to address. When you talk about gender equality, when you talk about sexual harassment, when you talk about how does a woman handle all these? These are questions that need to be asked by our participants. These are questions that we need to discuss. These are questions that we need to address.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In fact, I was just reading this other comment, a question rather from Shrikant on chat, where he's asking, what is the strong step to step all this inequality? Is there any implementation steps, or just we have to talk about this? Because I feel you, I understand. I feel like, yes, sometimes we do feel helpless and stuck because all we do is talk about it. But I feel like just talking about it is also extremely powerful, right? When more and more people hear about this, hear about things that can be done, or hear about the fact that what is happening is an inequality in the first place. So when we are able to identify all of this, we can start taking small steps. It can start from individual, it can start at an organization level. There are a lot of steps that can be taken, right? As we discussed in the last few minutes of the webinar, there are so many things that people can do at each level, whether it's at an organizational policy level, infrastructure level, or at an individual level, where we are able to identify and change behaviors in our own selves, or point it out, highlight it when our parents are behaving in such way. So yes, it may feel like the change is that we can't really see the change because it's so stagnant or because it's so slow. But I think this is where we start, by talking, by creating awareness. And by creating awareness, just continue to create awareness, right? When you have attended 15 plus webinars on these issues, how many conversations have you had with other people in your life who have not attended these webinars? Or what is it that you think you can do on your own? How many people can you impact on your own? Maybe those are the things that we start looking at as well.
The reality is, in today's culture, you said speak up. When something is not right, speak up. In today's culture, as long as it doesn't impact you, you just turn your head and walk off.
Absolutely.
This is the culture we are living into. This is the culture we are grooming our children into. This is the culture we are encouraging among our colleagues. This is something we need to address. Another thing I wanted to talk about is our public places, airports, whether I'm giving you my personal example. I had to travel to Assam, to Northeast country states. And so I had to go to Calcutta, stay the night at Calcutta, and then go to take the next flight to Bagdogra. I had to stay in the Calcutta airport. And you won't believe it, there were no latches to the doors of the rooms available in Calcutta airport. And I'm a woman. And I had to stay there in the night. I wanted to take a room in the Chennai airport. The look of the person who wants to give the room is, you are a prostitute if you are wanting to stay in the night in Chennai airport. They're not willing to give a room. So we need to ensure the infrastructure in our country is more friendly towards safer places. Yeah, there's so much. Some of them I can remember, so I'm sharing. I remember I was going to Bihar very regularly. Somebody would say, "You're going alone to Bihar?" Yes, I'm going. Are you not afraid? No, I'm not afraid. But when you listen to the stories that are happening around you, you can understand why it is not safe for women to go alone. So, but these are issues that need to be spoken, need to be addressed. We need women who are actually in the workplaces to come forward and actually ask these questions so that they are addressed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think
I'd like to mention. Yeah,
sorry,
please.
one last point I want to say. I think what would be even more impactful and powerful would be to see a man talk about these issues, to see a man talk about how his peers are contributing to this kind of an environment where there's misogyny, there's casual sexism, there's men acknowledging, yes, their own behaviors need to change. Or maybe I would love to see a man talk about gender inequality, I mean. Okay.
I'd like to mention a case I faced some time back. It's about 2 years back. I was in Goa for a party, ceremony and stuff. And the DJ was playing. I was right behind the DJ. A girl walks behind me and touches my behind and literally like, presses it. So I just turned around and started yelling at her. And 4 guys come up to me and they're like, you cannot, yell at a girl like this. And it's very difficult to deal with such situations because if you who are visualized as the oppressor, if you're a man most of the times, and you'll be like, okay, I should keep quiet and not say anything to deal with it peacefully, but it backfires. If you don't speak out, it backfires really bad. You are sent into a zone which is very depressing, where you feel that you are a victim, whereas you have not really done anything. So I had a doubt. So when you're addressing to someone and they're not listening to you, and you actually touch them on the shoulder, like if you're saying someone's name continuously 10 times and then you go, so how do you go about a scenario like this backfires on you, where then you are, kind of turned into the oppressor or somebody who's trying to dominate or something like that? How do you clarify those kind of situations appropriately, I would say?
I understand that, when we want to really convey something and someone's not understanding or not getting it or not listening it, we want to be, the next instinct that comes is we want to be louder, whether it's through our body, like we really want to like, hey, listen to me. But I feel like in such a situation, that kind of behavior may escalate the situation. And so sometimes we just have to know when to maybe just stop. We have to know, like, maybe this is not the time this person is going to understand, maybe this is not a place, and maybe we figure out what is a better time and place to have this conversation. Sometimes, depending on the situation, it's best to just maybe address it to how much ever we can and then walk away. Because when it's emotionally heightened, I'm not really sure how much of an impact it's really going to have. But I want to say that it is a very difficult thing to be in. And I feel like at that time, it's just like we are just taken, there's a lot of adrenaline going on and it's just instantaneous reaction. It's difficult to really keep our presence of mind
Yes. It's difficult to stay calm. You're not able to take the logical decisions on anything like that. It's mostly emotional.
Yes.
That was a wonderful answer. Thank you so much. Yes, ma'am, please, you'd like to say something.
Thank you to everyone. I think we've come to the end of the session. Thank you once again. There are certain topics which are very sensitive and where the awareness level in the country is very low. Eco-friendly topics. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to be present about it. Women, gender-biased issues, nobody wants us to talk about it. I'm not sure why, but while everybody goes through the pain of it. Yeah, thank you so much to all the participants who've made this a success once again. Thank you, Ms. Pankti, so much.
Thank you for this
platform. Thank you, Shant, for making this happen. Thank you to
Thank
all
you,
of
Pankti.
Vishwa team for making this.
I request all the audience members to please follow Empower Now and Dot Veros Foundation, and also kindly visit Vishwa, check out the previous talks. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
I'll just send you a breakout. Yeah, you can join.